Hey guys, welcome to the SimRacingPaddock. I'm William Marsh, and happy Labor Day to everyone in the United States, and happy Monday to everybody else. So, as the title of this stream is implying, I have had some interesting thoughts lately, and also other people's thoughts about the Open Sim Wheel. So, I recently put out my review of my Open Sim Wheel, and also I did my first iteration of my OSW Recommended Settings guide. So, I talked with one of my friends, Sebastian Keijmel, and he talked about how he has spent a year developing some settings, and basically, they are contrary to just about everything I've learned with this wheel so far. And he's saying that basically, from my recommended settings, it doesn't get the most out of this Open Sim Wheel. It doesn't get to the level of feeling like driving a real car as it could. So, if we open up my SimuCUBE settings and pull them here, so I have my iRacing SimRacingPaddock profile. This is what I've been using for a few months, where I have it set to 900 degrees, full strength in the profiler, and then adjust it as it fits in the sim. And then SimuCUBE reconstruction filter set to 2. As mentioned in my setup guide, I have or the SimuCUBE force reconstruction filter. It will take a lower frequency force feedback signal, and it will sort of upscale it to match a higher resolution while preserving the quality. So I tended to either run it at 1 or 2. 2 is what I've been usually running. And hey, Smooth, thanks for joining in. So I have that on. Torque bandwidth limit I set to unlimited because that gives you the full sort of range. And then I don't do any of the center frequency hertz because I felt like I didn't need it. And then damping, friction, and inertia I set to 0.2%, 0.3%, and 0%. So quick run through. Damping, that is like, it makes the initial, or not initial movement, but the movement of the wheel, it dampens that. Friction adds a dead weight through the entire wheel. And inertia, it actually will help reduce inertia the higher the number. But I tended to think lower is better for this. I talked about that repeatedly in my guide. And then I talked with my friend Sebastian Keijmel. He's a little bit of a guru when it comes to setting up open sim wheels. And he was like, no, you're going about it all wrong. So these are my settings. These are Sebastian's settings. And I trust Sebastian. He is a very fast racer. But I'm like, when I first talked to him, I was like, are you serious? This is totally counterintuitive to my thought of thinking. So he ups the force reconstruction filter all the way up to 8. So one thing worth mentioning is that right now the force reconstruction filter is a non-linear system. So basically it's not a direct correlation saying 8 is 8 times more intense than 1 or something like that. It is a different setting, so it could be 8 is a better fit for him, and it could be a better fit for me too. I don't know yet. I've never tested as high as 8 on the force reconstruction filter. Never done that. And then I have the same settings as him for the torque bandwidth limit and center frequency hertz, so we don't use those. But damping, friction, and inertia, those are major differences to what I'm used to using. So he's running with 5 times the damping setting than I have, and I think all 3.3 times the friction. But inertia, I've never really used the inertia setting. I felt like I never needed it because I would never have the damping and friction. So inertia can be used to counteract friction. So as mentioned before, the inertia setting is utilized to actually have less inertia the higher the number. So inertia, for those of you who don't know, is that initial movement, that initial movement force to overcome the standing resistance. That's what inertia is. So if I turn down the inertia number, that means there will be more inertia in the wheel. So it takes more effort to turn the wheel. So turn up the inertia back up to his 3% that he recommended. There's less inertia. So there's that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test out a few cars in iRacing and see how that fits, how it differs from my driving style, and if it is indeed similar to or closer to a real car with Sebastian Settings. So first off, I'm going to take the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup to the Sonoma Raceway IndyCar layout. And my choice for this is because it's a combo I like, but with my default settings, I struggle with. So I just tend to struggle with Porsches in general, rear-engine cars, but I would just want to see what happens. So let me turn on game capture and let's fire up iRacing. And I know I don't do iRacing as much, but hey, we're going back into doing some iRacing. If you saw in my Open Sim Wheel review, I did some content in iRacing. I did a dirt oval race, and that was so much fun, actually. It was a lot of fun. I also had other footage of me driving in iRacing with the Nissan GTP. That's a fun car, too. So we have our settings set up properly, and thanks for that comment, Chris. So we have the options, steering range, everything. So my wheel is centered. Wheel range is 900, as it is also set in SimuCUBE. And that should be good to go. Paddle shifters are set. So you can see my force feedback settings right here. So force feedback obviously enabled. Linear mode. You want to be using this mode when using a high-end wheel such as a direct drive wheel. And then in my wheel setup guide, you can check out my the INI file to set it so max force is a tangible number versus a strength number. So 93 Newton meters, that is utilized as the denominator for a fraction. So right now we are running at this OSW at, I believe it's 24 amp. I want to say it's like 24 amp or something like that, which translates into about 26, 27 Newton meters maximum strength. You don't really want to overload the components, or it might trigger the failsafe, which I've had happen on this wheel before. So max force 93. This would be the bottom number of the fraction. The top would be 27. Let's just round that up to 30 for good measure. And we have roughly 30% or 30 to 27% strength of this wheel. So that's what we have right now. That strength number is going to stay the same because when we switch to Sebastian's profile, we are not going to be changing the strength number. We are just going to be changing some of the other things such as the damping, friction, and inertia. And I've heard that dampen oscillations, this is a little bit of a controversial topic. I hear some people say keep it checked, some people say check it, some people say uncheck it. I'm going to try unchecked right now, and we'll see how this goes. So you can see there's no oscillations at least, so we don't have to worry about that at a standstill. So let's get to the track. Hold on, sorry, there's no audio right now, so let's change that real quick. So default speakers. Okay, let's check something. So mic check, mic check. How is the audio? How is the audio, guys? One thing I want to mention is I am testing out a new microphone. I have my Audio-Technica 8T20 versus my versus the AT875R that I've commonly used. So I'm trying something different this time. How is the audio sounding? So what I am noticing is that one of the things that is talked about when you're not running friction or damping is that the wheel might feel artificially snappy and twitchy. So driving with this wheel, I'm noticing that it has a sense of disconnect. So in-game audio is low. Let me turn it up a little bit. Okay, how's that for in-game audio? So, continuing on what I'm saying, is that it feels a little too light. It is a little too light in the handling. It's a little sense of disconnect for this wheel, because when you are driving with the Open Sim Wheel, you do have the strength and the ability to simulate a little bit better elements, such as the steering rack, like the friction of moving parts. That's why you do want a little bit of friction and damping in your steering inputs for a direct drive wheel. For other wheels, it can't really handle that as much because of the natural friction and inertia of the belt or gear drive systems. So you don't really want that kind of friction, but you do maybe want a little bit in a direct drive wheel, because these wheels are so smooth. They're almost too smooth at times. So it feels like it's too easy to steer in. That's part of the thing. And it could be because strength is a little on the lower side. It could be, but when the wheels are loading, or when the suspension is loading up, when I am feeling the car under load, it actually feels good. So basically, at load, it's feeling good, but the problem comes when I'm getting that initial turn in. It feels a little too snappy. It feels a little too light. So there's that. So I will finish out this lap, and actually I might do one more, because I want to try to actually get a lap time. So we'll... Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay. This car does not like trial braking. Mark 13, I will do Project Car 2 setting in the future. I'm going to be working on that a little bit, but not right now. This is iRacing. So, continuing. It's a little too snappy, in my opinion, in the steering, which kind of sounds a little weird. I know, because with what we've grown accustomed to, what we've grown to tend to use is with these wheels and with these products, we will want to have snappiness, because with Logitech G25, G27, G29, Thrustmaster wheels, and even some of the Fanatics, we've wanted to be as snappy as possible, but sometimes what I've been learning is snappy is not the best thing. So for example, with the Fanatic Club Sport Wheel version 2.5, it has the drift mode. So drift mode essentially is almost like positive numbers will greatly reduce the inertia of the wheel and reduce the friction too. And then with the negative numbers, it'll add inertia and add friction. So, like for example, Sean Cole and myself with the Club Sport Wheel version 2.5, we liked actually setting our drift mode at -3. Positive numbers would be good for something like, say, the like drifters. So obviously it's called drift mode. So drifters would like drift mode because it would speed up their wheel and give them extremely fast inputs. But sometimes you don't want that fast input while racing. For example, we always hear the term smooth is fast. When we have the wheel extremely jerky like this, that means that we are not being as smooth. We can jerk the wheel and that will reflect in our driving. So I am going to now switch to Sebastian's settings, and I'll give you my input on what I feel. And also for the record, I have not driven with Sebastian's settings. I have not driven with them yet, so I have no clue how it's going to feel. So let's get the car stopped, and also let's answer Chris's question. Do you think the podium will be any good? I think it's going to be really good. From early impressions I've been hearing from people like Gamer Muscle and Matt Malone, Gamer Muscle legitimately thinks that performance is on par in terms of smoothness and fidelity as the Open Sim Wheel. He has already said it is a class above the AccuForce, and I trust his input on that. As I feel like you guys should as well. So I think it's going to be great, and I think there's going to be a market for it. It is not as open source as the SimuCUBE, but at the same time, you might not want that open source nature. You might not want that nature. You might want that closed source because it's easier to set up, it's easier to utilize, and also Fnatic, they are going to have that element where you can plug other Fnatic peripherals in. So that can save on USB ports. Also console compatibility. And a lot of people might say, who the heck would want to drive an a direct drive wheel on Forza? Well, people are going to buy the podium wheel to drive with Forza. So keep that in mind. There is a market, so they're capitalizing on it. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good wheel. And then do I have the wheel from McLaren? Not yet. They're saying they should be sending me that wheel this week. So let's hope it is coming this week. So again, we were using my custom created profile. This was my profile based on my personal preferences. And now we are going to be switching to Sebastian Kay Setup. So this is Sebastian's setup. He sent me this setup via Facebook, and this is his personal recommendation. He was saying that this is his recommendation for what to use. So we will test this out. We will see how I like it and how well it performs. So hold on a sec. I am going to turn off display capture, go back to full screen with this iRacing, and we will hit the track. Yeah, guys, so Gamer Muscle, I think he is streaming the Formula Hybrid 2018 right now. He's doing some online races, so you can drop by his channel, give him a like, and check out what he's doing. So, first off, I'm clearly noticing the wheel is much, much more dampened. That is what I can tell from a fact. I can tell that it feels a lot more like steering a car at a stop right now, because you know how it is, like where you're steering a car, you feel the components in the steering just moving around. So it has that weight to it. So at a stop, it feels a little more connected. But again, we're not going to be driving at a stop. Let's hit the track. So we are checking this out, and let's see. Turn in. A lot more dampened. Like, even with that inertia setting on, I'm noticing that it is a lot more subdued. We're seeing it's not as snappy. So let's try a quick turn in. You can still get that quick turn in. You can overcome that resistance, but it feels a little more challenging, which I think might actually be a good thing. And here is my reasoning behind that. Again, we're going to use that mantra, smooth is fast. If you have very low resistance, you'll be more inclined to just throw the wheel in. But here, you have that encouragement to ease the wheel in and then ease it out. You're not going to be as jerky in your inputs. So with this, even just half a lap into this, I'm noticing I'm being smoother in my driving inputs because the wheel is just about forcing me to. This is setting or something where it's like, yeah, this is realistic settings. So Norman, basically I'm testing out different iRacing settings right now. So this is not the setting that is in my guide right now. I think based on these impressions, it is something where I think I will be updating them. But also, I want to test out these settings with different cars too. But yeah, early impressions with this Porsche GT3 Cup car, it does seem legitimately smoother, which I think can work well. But again, we want to see what kind of lap time we can get. Is it faster? Because smooth can be fast. It can. But yeah, I'm noticing I'm being a little more comfortable within the corners. Sonoma is a very challenging track, though, because a lot of crests, elevation changes, off-camber corners. Like turn 2, I believe, is an off-camber corner, so that can easily unsettle you. You see a lot of cars running wide, and I guess rear brake bias on this car. You can easily lock up the rears and get sent sliding just like that. So you have to keep that in mind. But yeah, our lap time to beat is a 1:37.9. So let's see how this goes. So ease into the brake for turn 9 chicane. Yeah, Yasin. It can definitely use a bit of green. In some months, you will see green here because I go here time to time. I live only a half hour from the track. And after rainfall, this is a beautiful looking track. So when it is actually green, it is beautiful, but it isn't green much. So turn in here. You can see I'm just a lot smoother in my input. And you can see, I think we are getting a good result out of this. Right here. I think that's turn 3A. Felt like I could clip that apex better. So yeah, what I want to get at with this new setup is that we are legitimately feeling more connected to the internal components of the car per se, where it kind of makes the difference between steering and driving. Because like realistically, if we like just get to the fact of the matter, we are just steering. We are needing to trick our brains into the idea we're driving. So, for example, when you are steering with no force feedback, that gives a total disconnect from the car. Your connection is only visual. You have no feeling of what the car is doing. So with force feedback, that means you actually get the sense of feel. And we have this sense that we've grown accustomed to from driving real cars. If you have real cars to drive, and that if you have the dampening, inertia, and everything set to low, then you really are missing out. It makes it too snappy. It doesn't feel like you're feeling the components of the car shifting. So with this, I say with a road car, I'm giving this my stamp of approval. And look at the time, 1:36.2. So not bad. Hey Robert, this is the real track layout in 2 weeks. Or actually slightly different. So yeah, this setup works well. And now we are going to try a different car and track combo. So we are going to be hopping out of the Porsche. And next up, I want to do some oval testing. I want to test on an oval. I know some of you guys might cry foul. It's like, why oval? Ovals are dumb and stupid. But the thing is, oval racing is incredibly dependent on feeling. You get the feeling through the wheel, and you have to figure out how to compensate. So let's do Ford Fusion, and I want to do a track with texture. So I'm likely going to suck at this, but let's try Darlington. So we will do that. And we'll do late afternoon racing. Why not? So we just need to download required updates. Thank goodness I have a good internet connection. Let's hope the iRacing servers are okay right now. Looks like they are. 27 megabit per sec or megabyte per second. Almost done with that download. So for Darlington, you need to have a field to track because realistically, it is a very bumpy track, it has a very, very tough line. But yeah, AJ, I'm in a similar boat to you, to be honest, because I grew up enjoying NASCAR. I still am a fan of NASCAR. Even with the stupid decisions and everything that they're doing, I still enjoy the racing. I mean, I think this Darlington race that was yesterday, it was a great race. We saw some good racing there. So I'm happy with watching the Darlington race. It was one of the first races I saw the majority of in a while, but I enjoyed the race. Why is that doing the pit exit line? So that line's just for pit exit, I think. So we will leave the pits. So yeah, I guess this line is showing the safe pit exit line. Because you can get penalized if you do an unsafe pit exit, I guess. So here's the line for pit exit. Actually, hold on a second. We need to switch our profile real quick. So we are going to switch to my old profile. So that's the iRacing SRP. And yes, it is feeling extremely snappy again. So I'm not the best at Darlington, so don't expect some great driving. But yeah, so feeling the car load up, you can feel the car going even over the seams. You can see the different seams in the pavement. So take the lower line and then ride the high groove. I know I'm a little on the slower side. Oh, I almost got a stripe right there. If I remember correctly, 3 and 4 are a little wider than 1 and 2. So yeah, you feel the car load up, but again, we feel that sort of sense of disconnect. That disconnected sense, which I'm not necessarily a fan of. Whoa, we just got really loose there. I'd say the wheel is partly why I caught that slide. Just having this quick nature of the wheel is awesome. Okay, so we're getting a feeling of the car, but at the same time, it just feels a little disconnected. It feels like we are steering a little too quickly, and boom, in the wall. So let's switch to Sebastian's setup and see how it works for oval racing. So let's jump. So we have iRacing SRP, switch to Sebastian Kay. I'm not making any other changes, so I just changed the setup in SimuCUBE off screen. So we will see how this feels now. So again, at slow speeds, we do feel that inertia and turning in. I love cars. I'm really liking these other setups, or this other configuration. So we're right now driving with the stock car, and we had a 28.8. I think I will improve because we're getting some rubber down on the track, and also I'm learning the racing line. But now I'd say it's marginally better, not as significant an improvement on road courses. And I think my theory for that is because in the corners, we're going to feel load. In these corners, we're feeling the load on the suspension. So with iRacing's force feedback, the way it's simulated, we are feeling the load on the steering. Anyway, whoa. Okay. That was almost a brown pants moment. But yeah, so with the way we feel the load, especially in these banked corners, that does add the weight to the steering, and I keep on getting some stripes. But with the way we are feeling the load into corners, that doesn't really matter much with the damping and friction. But I think what I am noticing is the steering is heavier through the corners. I'm not making as radical adjustments mid-corner, because you're always going to be making minute steering adjustments in the middle of a corner. That's the nature of driving an oval. You feel the car get a little loose, counter steer a bit. Get a little tight, you might add a little more steering or back off the throttle a bit. So with that, you can feel a little dampening, and I think that helps a little bit. Because with the oval, you don't want those drastic inputs. Darlington is such a tough track. So, continuing. You want to be more subtle in your corner inputs. You want to be more subtle with what you are doing. And this is something where I think the extra damping and friction does help with that. So let's see if we can actually get a good lap now, even though I suck at this track. Hello, how's it going, man? So, ride the high line a bit, get the car pitched down, a little loose on exit. Whoa, that's tight. I mean, that's loose. That's loose. Oh my god, how did we keep that off the wall? We need to see the replay after that. I mean, we lost time, but wow, that was intense. But yeah, little scrape right there. How the heck did Kyle Larson ride the high line? I mean, Kyle Larson, he is an insane driver. I mean, it sucked that he didn't get the win, but still, he is a heck of a driver. Okay, so let's watch that save real quick. I didn't get a better time than my initial setup, though. That's interesting, but I think that's more lack of a skill. I have like a lazy initial turn in now. So, where was that slide? Okay, there we go. So let's check this out. So here, I'm turning in, and you can see I am sliding. It's a power slide through that corner. And right there, you would think I would hit that wall right there. Let's see how close we got, though. But yeah, that's one of the things I love about this open sim wheel. It allows you to catch things like this. So right here, it looks like I'm hitting it, but somehow I didn't. Got no corner, or got no contact indication. There we go. Okay, so let's try this one more time. Like, we'll try one more time and see if we can beat a 28.8. And note that I am also using the default baseline setups. Okay. So ease up the track into the groove, flat out through the straight. Huh, Theo, that's weird. I don't know why. Sorry about that. There we go. Ride that corner. 28.87. So close, but I did not get that turn in right. That was a bad mistake on my end. But so yeah, we can see that we can think that. But Theo, I guess thanks for that subscriber. Thank you for dropping by. I guess YouTube's algorithm can be weird. But thanks for dropping by and subscribing. So let's try this one more time. Gonna throw this down and see if we can get this car to stick. But I can see that I believe with this car, this setup is better. Like, even though it might not reflect on the time, I guess I need to compensate because... Whoa, 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 whoa. Thanks, Lapper. So we're not going to get a good lap here. But one of the ways that Sebastian described it to me was that as initial sim racers, we get used to the Logitechs, the Thrustmasters, the Fanatics of the world, which those are not capable of producing forces similar to a real-life car. I mean, Fanatic with their club sport can get relatively close to cars with power steering, but the thing is that with this direct drive wheel, you have everything in another ballpark. You can spend hours, if not days, fine-tuning your setting and making it work. Apparently, these setups for iRacing, Sebastian, he's spent a year tweaking on and figuring out what works best and everything. So, I say this works pretty well, even though I'm at a track I suck at right now. So, again, for ovals, I think I will give this my seal of approval. But in hindsight, I should have picked a different track that I actually know how to drive, because I haven't touched Darlington in over a year. Slideways. Off the wall. Dang it. Oh, this track is such a challenge. I don't think I could ever last a full race here. Okay. So, where to next? Let's do an open wheel car on the road. Let's do an open wheel car on the road and see how that goes. So, we are going to be swapping out rims now. We are pulling out the Fanatic Formula rim. And I'm thinking, let's do the 2018 IndyCar. So, turn on display capture real quick. So we can go to, it's Dallara IR18. And then what track did they use for testing? Why not, let's do Sebring. So, we will try out Sebring late afternoon. And Lee will do the full configuration. Let me check something real quick. Okay, we are set. Load up Sebring. And we will also load up my stock profile. We'll talk about that again. And why we might want to switch to Sebastian's profile. So, go back to my SRP profile. So again, this just feels so light now. I can almost change the steering with my finger when it's at a standstill. Just feels almost off. So here, we will need to change... Actually, no, we are using custom controls for this car. So what I've learned is that this car is very, very heavy. So let's go... let's see. 99 Newton meter. We will do that. So at a standstill, you'll notice the steering is pretty heavy. And part of the reason is the Indy cars, they do not have power steering. So steering in an Indy car is very heavy. So we are driving and turn in. You will see the force feedback spiking up on the top right. That's our meter, our telemetry meter, and you'll see it spiking up. And it is very strong. You can see the inputs. So this is with my stock settings, remember this. And you can just see how visceral this steering experience is. And with the no power steering, it is intense. But at the same time, it's fun. So this, honestly, with these default settings, it does feel solidly connected. It does, like, I do get the simulation of the steering components through the steering wheel. So, honestly, I'd be perfectly happy with this setup. It feels connected, it feels solid, and I'm enjoying it. But it is admittedly on the more brutal side. You are seeing it is shaking me a little more. You can see my arms shaking. So, with that, we are seeing how this is a very strong car, force feedback wise. And we're about to hit turn 17, which is bumpy as heck. So God help us all. So we're jumping through turn 17. Get the bumps. Ride it out. So what I'm wondering, the only thing I might be curious about is how bumps are handled with Sebastian Settings. Because every time we hit the bump, you see the wheel wildly jumping. So I'm wondering if adding inertia and friction to the wheel will make the jumps in the wheel a little more subdued and maybe closer to real life. So we'll do one lap around and we can see how this is with Sebastian Settings in a minute. But yeah, right there, the jumps and in the steering wheel are just insane. They are very brutal, very vicious. And I don't think the bumps would be as wild in real life. I don't think that the bumps would shoot the steering off as crazy as they do here. I could be wrong, but you just see the wheel jumping. Alright, Theo, you have a good day, man. And consider this is at 30% strength with this wheel. And you're just seeing it shaking my arms. So this car is absolutely brutal. But it is so much fun. Get the car turned down, ride out. So 1:46.2, that's our time. So now we are going to switch into Sebastian's settings. So this is Sebastian Settings. Immediately you feel the change in responsiveness in the wheel. It feels much heavier. Even then when without the filter. So let's see how this feels under driving conditions. And remember, the strength isn't changing. It's just the way the wheel is handling the forces being sent to it. We are seeing the adjustments in damping. We're seeing the friction. And so, yeah. Let's brake into this corner. Turn in. Turn in feels about the same. But I am noticing the bumps aren't as vicious. The bumps are a little more subdued. It's a little more tame. So turning in, we're not seeing the car jumping with the steering as crazy as we were with the other setup. So there is still jumping. Don't get me wrong, but it is nowhere near as bad as it was with the other setup. So yeah, I'm guessing Open Sim, like the Sebastian Settings for the like this wheel, they do feel legitimately better. Like we aren't getting as crazy in input, but oh man, honestly my arms are starting to feel legitimately sore after driving with this. But I'm noticing that I'm not getting the full throttle in my Heusinkveld, so I might need to recalibrate them. But yeah, we're still very responsive. We're still very responsive, but at the same time, it's not too responsive, which is nice. because too responsive can also be an issue. So I think we'll do one last car combo in a minute and test it out. But yeah, this is getting my seal of approval. This is heavy though. I'm just warning you, this is a heavy steering car. And yeah, this could get tiring after a few laps. Even at 30%. That's the crazy thing. We're only using 30% of this wheel, roughly. And still, this is, like, I'm feeling sore. And it's partly the car, partly the track. But, man, that really speaks volumes to how brutal this wheel is. Man, if I did 100% force feedback challenge with this, I'd be dead. Props to Jimmy. But yeah, you can see I'm a little more consistent hitting my apexes thanks to this setup. You can see I'm hitting the apexes a little better. I'm a little smoother in my driving put. It's not as erratic. So I think this is a good setup. There we go. And boom. Cut like half a second off. I'll take that. So, last but definitely not least, we are going to jump into Rallycross. Rallycross is going to be an interesting discipline to test out with these new settings. Just thinking off the top of my head, Rallycross requires a lot of counter steering. It requires balancing the car, especially through slides. So, seeing how this car can behave through that input, through that behavior, should be interesting. So, again, we are going to start with my stock settings. I'll give you a quick thought on what it is. As a reminder, these were my stock settings for people who are jumping in. So, these were my stock settings. 900 degrees rotation, bump stop range. This was my personal preference where I added it's a 20 degree dead zone between the 900 degrees and full stop on this wheel because of the nature of how the Open Sim Wheel handles this. The SimuCUBE Force Reconstruction Filter I have set to 2. Torque bandwidth limit is unlimited. Peaking and notch filter is off. Other filters, damping 20%, friction 0.2%, friction 0.3%, and inertia 0%. That's what I had. Sebastian Settings, he had his SimuCUBE Force Reconstruction Filter set to 8, and he had damping and friction set to 1%, inertia set to 3. That's wildly different, and that's why we're testing out these setups. And Solo, congratulations. Hopefully, you will enjoy it. Is there a reason you're getting both, though? That's interesting. So I'm thinking for this setup, we are going to use the Daytona Rallycross short layout because that's one of the layouts I am actually used to driving on for Rallycross. So we will go into the Subaru WRX STI with this setup and we will see how it drives. Should be fun. And this will be the last car track combo we will be testing for now. And then I will get into my closing thoughts. Okay, Solo, keep in mind though that only the PS4 licensed wheel, which is still not fully announced, that will be compatible with the PlayStation 4. It is not just get the DD1 or DD2 that is already available for pre-order and has all the stats. You need to make sure you get the officially licensed PS4 one. So, let's gearbox up, down. Handbrake is set. That was an interesting pop in the handbrake though, but looks like we're A-okay. Pedal configuration, it looks good. So we will get behind the wheel and see how this performs. So this is my stock setting. We still do see the just the sense of connection. So there is still a sense of connection. So we have that. It's similar to the feeling of the IndyCar and stuff. So let's get an idea on how this car feels. So on a slide, it does feel kind of dead, which is to be somewhat expected. But again, it almost just feels too responsive. Almost feels too responsive for what we're doing. It doesn't feel dampened enough. So that's why I'm kind of starting to realize. So we are getting a little more erratic behavior, which is sort of present, and we almost just wrecked. My bad. So Joker section. And responsiveness is not a bad thing, don't get me wrong, but too responsiveness, too light an input, what happens is you'll get jerky and erratic steering, which can lead to abnormal, adverse car behavior. And note to self, do not brake or do not handbrake until you are steering right. So yeah, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind that with what this is, you want dampening. You want some sort of friction, and that'll simulate the components of the steering system of the car. So that helps improve what you feel. And yeah, so it's tricky though. It's tricky finding the balance. So it's like, that's why Sebastian, he spent over a year setting up the car. So we are now going to jump into Sebastian's setup. I'm also going to get a fresh car so we can get a fresh baseline reference. So hold down my X button and jumps out of the car. Jump into my SimuCUBE settings. Change it to iRacing Sebastian Kay. So again, first thing I notice at the stop is there is more friction, more resistance in what I am doing. So we will jump out and get an idea on how the car's handling, especially through the corners. So here you might notice that the steering is more subdued in my slide. We are seeing that. It's not nearly as erratic. So I'm thinking that this, like, we made a mistake again, so ignore that. But we are seeing that the more subtle steering inputs, you will need to compensate a bit for. That's one thing to keep in mind, because if you're going from a wheel that is a lot more snappy, a lot more responsive, then you might run into some issues. And Matthias, thanks for subscribing. So you might run into some issues at first, because you might need to move your steering input time a little bit back, because there is a little more natural resistance. But the thing is that it is slightly better. It is slightly more responsive. It is slightly more detailed. So there's that. Rob Stolk, why do I put the SimuCUBE at 100%? Because it sets a constant. So, for example, I just did the IndyCar. I just came from the IndyCar to this. So, for this, I have the linear mode in iRacing checked. So it's a linear input, and it converts it into a fraction. So the fractional setting for this is, right now we are running with a maximum strength of around 90 Newton meters. So having the SimuCUBE at 100% strength in the profiler allows me to just change that variable in the sim into a strength figure. So it's just that one variable. So like set it to 90 in the sim, and then you can have it set to whatever figure you want. So I have it set to 90, which means I'm running 30% strength. So that's the 30% is the numerator in fraction. The 90 is the denominator. So there's that. And then with the IndyCar has much stronger steering. So I want to say I shifted it to like 120 max force. And that worked fine. That worked well. So there's that. Same thing with R Factor 2. R Factor 2 is pretty important on that as well, because there is what can be called soft clipping in cars. There is what's called soft clipping in the cars, and that means if you set the car-specific force feedback multiplier to 1.0, some cars will clip, you lose detail and fidelity. I wasn't aware of that until last night, but one of my friends mentioned it to me, and I quickly tested it last night, and I noticed it did make a difference if you had the SimuCUBE set to 100% and then you turn down the strength in the game. So there's that, but yeah, I've found it easier to turn it to 100% in SimuCUBE and just adjust the titles as it fits. Hey, Solo, I tried giving you an opinion. You don't need to spend roughly $4,000 on wheels. You can always just move your rigs around. But yeah, also kind of the point of the stream is to talk about SimuCUBE settings. It's not the Q&A session. I'm planning on doing a Q&A stream or something in the near future. So if you want to have questions that are answered, I'm going to start asking for people's questions for either a Q&A stream or a Q&A video. But at the same time, it's kind of disrespectful to jump into someone's stream and demand that streamer answer your questions. Because it's something where you can come into a stream, ask a question. If the guy has time to drop into it, if he has time to answer that question, then good. But saying well, you're a bad person for not answering my question, that's kind of disrespectful. And I could understand if the guy's a troll, but there are people who legitimately come into streams to troll people. There are people who come into streams to attack people and try to get a reaction. So that is something that is kind of sad in this community, because it seems like we're coming into this day and age where these presenters, streamers, YouTubers, presenters, whatever you want to call us, you're saying you have to answer our questions, and it's an obligation, not an option. So I'd say kind of disrespectful to jump in here and say, answer my question or else I am ditching or whatever. So yeah, I ran over. Let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming. So my thoughts on these settings for the Open Sim Wheel from Sebastian Keijmel. I'm liking them. They really do give you more of a sense to have weight to the car's steering, which is kind of missing. It's kind of missing from my older settings. So with that being said, they might not be for everyone, because these settings are going under the notion that you're looking for a realistic feel. And Other settings, like my other settings, they might be better for people who are looking for a competitive edge. As mentioned, we added dampening, we added friction to this wheel. Which means our turn-in is going to be slightly dampened. It's going to be slightly more on the slower side. So if you are wanting something quicker, you can turn down the dampening. It might not feel as realistic, but it could be quicker. In my experience, driving with these newer settings, it does give me a better input of what this car is doing. It does give me a better input on what the car is doing, as well as giving me less erratic behavior. But all in all, though, I am enjoying this setup, so I will take a look at modifying my setup, and also later on I might take a look at the IRFFB app. So I'll take a look at what it is, like everything, and I'll adjust my guide. But yeah, so far this new force feedback setting, I'm giving my thumbs up. So if you've already checked out my force feedback setup guide for SimuCUBE, I am going to make some adjustments in the coming days or so. I want to add more titles, I want to add more input, and I might do some more guides like this. I might do some more videos or streams like this where I can take a look at something along the lines of maybe like R Factor 2 settings. What would work better? What would give you a better, more authentic feeling? But yeah, so I do recommend these settings. And guys, thanks for watching. Until next time, for the Sim Racing Paddock, I'm William Marsh, and you have a good one.